Oh my god, I look crazy. Look at that hair. Can you tell I've been developing full stack apps for the past couple of weeks with React? I'll make everyone use React. I'll make them all use it. Alright, so today we're gonna have a chill day. We're gonna have some fun. Do you want a candle as well with that? Okay, fine, I'll light a candle. Jeez, you really want to get comfortable in here, don't you? We're gonna be discussing kind of my setup on how I would start a full stack application. So if you're new to the full stack world, this is gonna give you a good insight of how all these different pieces work together. And we're gonna be using React, which is the most popular one. So everything's gonna be great. So I'm gonna break it down in chapters from getting Next installed to Prisma to Postgres to Typescript and whatever else we're gonna use in this whole system. All right, so enjoy yourself. And I also want to say this is going to be kind of our baseline foundation for the full stack React course, I should say. So I have a full stack React course on my page. If you want to get that, you can feel free to get that. It's a bit outdated now, but it's going to be rebuilt with Next.js13 and all the different technologies. So course is in the description down below. I'm working on it, don't worry. And let's get going. Hope you enjoy. Drop a subscribe and stuff. Come on. Okay, so the first step of this process is to get Next.js installed, and we're going to use Next.js as our foundation for the full stack application. Okay, so we're going to be using Next.13 because that's the newest and the coolest, so we're in the cool gang. Now, if you click on here, and it does give you an npm install, but we're just going to go over to Google and search Next beta docs. All right, so this is updated to version 13 here, which uses the app directory. So we're going to be working with this. Okay, so the first step is installation. So you got to make sure you have Node version 16.8 or later. A way you can check that is open up a terminal anywhere and write node-v. And as you can see, I have version 18, so we are good to go. Okay, next up, what we're going to do is run this command, npx create next app at latest -- experimental app. So let's paste that in here in our command line. We're in VS Code as well, and then we're going to give it a project name, full stack next with TypeScript stuff. Let's name it that. We're going to add TypeScript. Now, if you don't know TypeScript, don't worry, just add it and then learn it as you go. That's the best way to learn TypeScript. ESLint is a no, and the source directory is a no because we're going to be using the app directory. And also, import alias, just hit enter for that. That's going to basically just allow us to get imports done very easily in Next.js. But don't worry about it for now. Okay, so that's going to install, and after it installs, we're going to go into this folder, and we can do that with cd and whatever the folder name is. So let's just paste that in there and hit enter. Let me make this a bit bigger actually, like that, so you can see. And now what we're going to do is run code and period, which is going to open up an instance of this folder. Cool, and then we're gonna run npm run dev, which is gonna start up a development server for us right here, so we can see what's going on. Cool. So I'm just gonna give a quick overview of all the files, and then we're gonna start adding to this full stack project. We're gonna start adding a database and other packages. Okay, cool. So let's start off. tsconfig. If you want to mess around with TypeScript, you can do that here. I highly recommend just keeping strict onto true and JSX to preserve, and just, again, go kind of just start making TSX files and see what errors they pop up, and then go from there. README file if you want to add some description for your GitHub page, and then the package.json. This is where all your dependencies are installed. Next config here if you want to make any changes to Next. And as you can see, we also have a message here pop up saying, this workspace contains TypeScript version. Would you like to use workspace, blah, blah, blah. So click allow on that. And what essentially that allows you to do is get loads of Next.13 functionality integrated with TypeScript. And I'll just show you that in a second. Next up, we have a config file here. Public here, this is where you drop your images. Pages, this is going to be used for API requests. So we're going to be adding And we're going to be making database requests from here. So we're going to experiment with that. Node modules is just all the packages that you got installed. And then we have app, which is basically where our application lives in. So now every homepage, every page.tsx or JSX or whatever, is going to load up first. That's going to be your root page here. So if we take a look here, right, when we load up localhost 3000 in the root app directory, it's just going to load up the page. If you want another page to load up, let's say /about, like that, then you'd need to make a folder with the name about, and in here you'd make another page.tsx, and then that's going to load up just fine. So I'm just going to copy everything over from here and paste it in here. I'm just going to rename this to about, and I'm just going to add a h1 here that says about page. Now there's more about Next.js. If you want to watch my previous video, I fully cover it, all the major features that are out. But essentially, if I go to /about now, it's going to load up this page. Now I can still add components here, which is fine. So if I have a page here, let's just get rid of this folder. And in this page, our home page here, let's just clean up everything so it's nice and easy to understand. H1, and we'll just add a home here like that. And then we're just going to remove all of these different things here. One note, by default, Next.js comes with CSS modules, but we're not going to be using that. We're going to switch over to Tailwind very soon. So there we go. Just clean that up. We can remove this page module.css. We're going to keep our globals because we can configure quite a few stuff in here. Our layout again is used if I want to add another nav in here or something, or a footer. Children here basically renders out all the different pages that we pass it. Okay, so that's our layout, and then head for any metadata. So if I want to update the title and say Next.13, and as you can see, it updates right there for us. So that's essentially it. So that's going to be our base for our full stack application. And next up, let's add some styling. Okay, so let's get Tailwind installed. So Tailwind essentially is a library that allows you to add these utility CSS classes, just in case you haven't heard of it. I know loads of you have. And loads of you love it, loads of you hate it. But to be honest, I was one of those people that didn't love it at the beginning. And then I just cannot imagine using anything else than Tailwind. Because one big advantage of Tailwind over any CSS library or JS library is its design system. I must say, it's so amazing that you can add any font or any color and it's just going to look good. And if you want to further customize it, you still can. So you have that option. So let's get up and going. We can go over here to get started and then framework guides and hit Next.js. So the first step is to copy over these 2 lines of code. So let's just add that in the terminal right here and paste it in. Make sure you close up the development server as well. Oops. Let's cancel out of this. Actually, we need the second command because that's just installing another instance of Next.js. So push the button and let the wind decide your fate. Cool. So now we can head over to this Tailwind config.js. And we essentially need to copy over this content bit over here. So take the content and just replace it. What does this do? Well, essentially, it's going to just check the app folder for us. And if it detects any JS or Typescript files, it's going to recognize it, and then Tailwind's going to work with it. Now, we don't need the source directory anymore, so we can just get rid of that and hit save. Cool. And finally, we'll just add these 3 Tailwind configs over to our global.css and paste it up here and save. I messed something up. There we go. Cool. So now we should be able to give this a go. So if I put that there, let's add a little bit of code here, shall we? So let's just do something like this. So we'll have I'll import a link tag. Import link from Next.js. And then here, we'll just replace this with a link tag that says go to the dashboard, like that. Cool. And the href is gonna be /dashboard, like that. Okay, so let's start up the server. Remember, we have to do npm run dev again. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. And let's try to add some classes to this. So let's go over to the main, add a class name. So we can do a padding y of 4, for example. And we can do a px of 48, something big like that. And it doesn't seem to work just yet. It says it's compiled. Oh, there we go. It updated now. So there we go. So if I want to add more padding here at the top, boom, done. And then I can make this look like a button, kind of. So we can add a class name here and say background teal of 700, for example. And there you go. And then I can add a text of black. There we go, with a font of bold, just to make it a bit thicker. Maybe that's too bold. Do we have a medium in here? Yes, we do. Padding y of 2, padding x of 4, and a rounded of medium. Look how fast you can design something. And then we can change this color to maybe a bit more brighter, like 500. Cool, so there we go, that's it. That's Tailwind all set up and going with Next.js. So let's move on, adding a database and the easiest way I found to add a database to your full stack Next project is using Railway. And it's just as simple as going to railway.app, start a new project and hitting provision Postgresql. And that's it. You click that. And then if you head over to, I already have like 3 of mine. It should pop up like this for you, right? I'll go to this one and you should have one made just like this. So you can click on it and then go to connect, and this is going to give you basically a connection URL. So you need to paste this connection URL and hook it up with Prisma, which I'm going to get into in just a bit. But that's it. That's probably the easiest way I found to get a Postgres database. Another option would be Supabase. You can head over to Supabase and start a new project, and they have they'll supply you with a Postgres database as well. So if you head over here to settings somewhere, it should be somewhere here. They're going to give you a connection URL. So you can use that as well. But again, all we need is just this line of code here. Remember, hit show so it shows your password. But always remember that this data is very sensitive. And if someone has access to your full Postgres connection URL with your password and username, they're going to be able to write data to your database, which you probably don't want unless you're looking to be hacked. But then you're just a wee troublemaker. Okay, so we have this. That's fantastic. Let's get into Prisma next. So essentially what Prisma is, let's head over to Prisma, is it allows you to communicate with any type of database from Postgres, MySQL, SQLite, MongoDB, and you're communicating and creating tables and deleting different posts or whatever using the same syntax. So whatever you're using, you can use MongoDB. You're still going to use the same syntax with Prisma, which is why it makes it so incredible to work with. You need to learn the syntax once, and then you can use any database. And it's also TypeScript supported, which is really cool because you're going to see we're going to get loads of nice highlighting going on. So let's install Prisma, shall we? So let's head over here and go over to Docs, Getting Started, and quick start. So first of all, let's copy and paste over this command here, npm install Typescript and ts node. So let's open up and close this up. Now remember, when we do Next.js and install it, it comes with Typescript, as you can see, types React and types React DOM, but it comes specifically for React and Next. Whereas this one just adds it to Node, all right, because we're gonna be writing just Node.js code as well. Not just JavaScript code, I should say. Node.js code is JavaScript code. But it's gonna make sure that Prisma is gonna work nicely with TypeScript. That's it, essentially. Next up, we're gonna install this command, npm install Prisma save dev. So let's run that command. And there's another command that we need to run, which is not included in the get started section for some reason. So it's okay, we're just gonna install it after. npm I, and it's called @Prisma client. So run that command. And that's gonna be it. Cool. So after we have all of these installed, let me make some space here. We are gonna run the command npx prisma init. All right, let me pull this up so you can see. npx prisma init. And that's gonna create us a folder here with a schema, as you can see. So all I need you to worry about is this bit here, which is basically our connection source to our database. So the provider here, you need to specify, well, what are you connecting to? Do you want to do a Postgres? Do you want to do a MongoDB? In our case, it's Postgres, so it's fine. We can leave that untouched. But if it's MongoDB, I think you just do MongoDB. I need to check the docs, but it's something like that, something very similar. And the database URL, this is where your connection string goes in from Railway here. Now, don't copy this over. I'm going to delete it so you cannot use it. But essentially, also when we initiated our Prisma app, it generated us a .env file. So you can just replace the string with your string here. And again, this .env file, we also need to add it down here to the git ignore, because again, remember, we don't want anyone to see this git ignore, all right? Because if they see it, sorry, not the git ignore, the .env file, because if they have access to it, then it's a big no-no. Also, you see that there's a .env local here, and that's what Next.js uses for environment variables, which we're gonna also make. But this is specifically for our database and our backend. Okay, so that's it. That should work fine. Next up, it says run Prisma DB pool to get any models or database schema into your Prisma schema. So what does that mean? Don't worry what that means. I feel like it's easier to show the reverse of it, because you'd only use that if you already have some data in your database. But in our case, we don't. I do in this one, which I need to just kind of delete, to be honest, and make a new one. But what you need to do essentially is go here and create whatever model you want. So let's head over to Prisma, scroll down, and we can just copy paste this right here. Okay. So let's take a look at what this is. So a model post is essentially a blueprint of how your data is going to look in your database. So we are essentially saying we're going to have a model post here, and every model post is going to have a ID associated to it. So this is something that we can customize and we can name any way we want. And then next up we have the type. So in this case, it's a number. So we're enforcing the rule of, hey, this ID can only be a number. And then we have ID here, which specifies that it is a unique type of ID. And we have a default here, which we can do to auto increment this ID. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Next up, we have a title, which we just specify it's string, and that's it. No additional arguments. And next up, we have content here, which is a type of string too, but it has a question mark, which essentially means that it's optional. Okay, you don't need to add it, but I mean, if you add it, that's great. Next up, we have a Boolean here, which is again essentially just a false or truthy value. And here we can set a default, which is false. So if I make a new post and I'm not specifying if it's published or not, it's automatically going to be put to false. And here we just have a relation. So I need to copy over this first bit here so we can understand the last bit. So as you can see, our user basically has a post here, posts of post. So what that means essentially is, hey, I want every user to have loads of posts. All right, so we're making a relationship, one-to-many relationship. And down here to connect these two together, so the first step would be to make a post and then say post with an array like that. And in your post, you essentially just need to create an ID here. Author ID, it's called. I'm gonna name it to something like user ID. I feel like that is a bit more appropriate, like that. And then here we have an author, or a user, I should say. That's the type of user, so it's automatically gonna know it's this model. And the relation is, I want to basically connect this user ID field to the ID up here, and that's gonna make the relationship. But to keep this simpler, I'm just gonna remove it and we're just gonna have a post. I'm gonna make a full tutorial with relations and all of that good jazz, so don't worry about it. Okay, so essentially what we want to do is we have our models here. After we did npx Prisma init, we essentially want to push these changes all the way up here like this. See the way we have it here in this database. Now I should probably clear this out. I'd be able to wipe it out, but I could just do this command, npm prisma migrate def. All right, so this is what you'd use to, npx prisma migrate def. All right, you do this command and this is gonna take all of your models and push it up to reflect in here. So this is gonna take a while, so don't worry about it. It's only gonna ask you for like a name. So what is the migration file's name? In this case, we can just say something like, well, just write the fucking post, you know, that's about it. Now I might have a different error here because it's not in sync with what I have. You shouldn't have this data, but I'll just wipe it. So I'll just say, yeah, wipe it, delete the data, and just replace it with whatever I have here. So as you can see, it's gone now. And then we get to make a new migration name. So I'm gonna say added a post model. Cool. Let's push this up. And next time you want to push any changes, you can do the migrate again. And here it says run Prisma DB pool. So for that, you wouldn't have any models. So you'd have something like that. And then you could run npm Prisma pool. And that's going to get the post from here down here and make a model out of it. Okay. So that's essentially it. And next up, we're going to run a command that's called Prisma generate. And npx Prisma generate, I should say. Actually, we're going to do this a bit later because I do want to show you actually what that means. Okay, so we have our schema, which is fantastic. And now what we need to do, one more thing, is to make a client. So go here, new, and client TS. Okay, so through this client, we essentially are communicating with our database, and then we can run commands like client.create a new post or client delete new post. But what we're doing in this file, I'm just gonna copy it over because it is from the docs. Essentially, what you're doing here is you're importing Prisma like that, Prisma client, and you are making an instance of it and then exporting it, okay? Because Prisma recommends that you only have one instance of this up and running and not multiple instances because that can lead up to different issues. So every time we want to fetch some data, we can import this client TS file that we just made here. Okay, and that's essentially it. that's Prisma all up and ready and going. Now in the future, I'm also going to cover Next off because we're going to be adding this and connecting it to through Prisma because it does have a nice adapter, and then we can do Google off and email and all that good jazz. So as you can see, they have Prisma here. Just need to install these tools, and then it's quite simple actually to hook it up. They give you everything you need from user to a session to a verification token and all that good jazz. So thankfully, it's really easy to set up. Okay, so that's fantastic. In the final section, we are going to take a look at how all of these pieces work together. So I'll see you in a bit. Okay, now that we have everything set up, how do all of these pieces work together? That's probably your question. Okay, so let's start off with, let's make a post here. I'll just make one just so we can retrieve it, okay? So let's go over to post. I'm gonna click on it, add a row, and I don't need to do an ID here. It's, if you remember, it's just the title that we need to define. So, hello, this is a new post. So I just insert this. Cool. Okay, we have a post with content of nothing and published of false. ID of 1. Cool. Okay, so we can close that down because we know we have a post. How do we fetch? Well, what we can do is in Next.js13 now, we can just fetch in our default function here. And the reason why we can do that is by default, all of these components are now, or pages, I should say, are server components, or server pages, and they're rendered server side. So what we can do is just go in here and, or you can make a new function up here. Let's just do that to keep everything a bit more clean. We can create an async function, get posts, like that. And here we can just define a response, and we can say await fetch. And here we can go to /API/ I don't know. Let's name this get posts. Okay, and that's how you can fetch something. Now we don't have this /API/get posts, so let's make it. So head over to pages and API, and here we can actually just copy over this basic syntax here, and actually we can just rename it to get posts. Cool. Okay, so essentially what we have here is an import, and this is just for TypeScript. We are specifying that our request is a Next API request type, and the response is a Next API response. And as you can see, there's another type defined up here, type data, which is added here. And that just makes sure that we're returning here a string, and that's our response. If we try to do anything else, like a number, it's going to error out and say type number is not assignable to type string. So it's going to give us a nice preview message or error message of how our response should be. So that's cool. Okay, so we can get rid of this now, which is fine. And we're going to make our own custom one. So get posts. Basically what we're going to do is check our request. All right, so if our request.method triple equals to get. All right, so we want to make sure the user is trying to get the post. It's not trying to post the post, delete the post, or update the post. Only get it. Okay, so if they're trying to get it, then we can try to do something here. We can try to get Prisma to fetch our post for us. Okay, so let's import Prisma here then. Remember, Prisma is only going to work in here. All right, it's not going to work in... I think it's going to work here as well, in the as long as the component or page is a server component. I believe then it's going to work. But generally speaking, I like to add all the logic here in the API routes, because you might have a client component and that's not going to work. You're not going to be able to fetch data there or actually run like Prisma commands in there. But anyway, we want to do validation and loads of other stuff in here. So we'll do a try and catch here like that, and then I'll pass in the error. Oops. Cool. Something's bugging out here. It says it's not good, so I'm not sure what I messed up. Let's see. Yeah, all of this is messed up somehow. God damn it. Let's paste that in again. Okay, cool. So here we can do try with a catch of error. Cool. Okay, so what are we gonna try to do? Get Prisma to fetch the posts. Okay, so let's import Prisma from //Prisma/client. Cool. So to actually fetch the posts, it's as simple as saying data await Prisma, and take a look. This is why TypeScript is absolutely amazing. You can do Prisma dot, and look at that. It's gonna show you all the available models that you have access to. In this case, it's just posts. So post dot, and here are all the different things that you can do to it. I can create, I can delete, find many. Let's do find many. And that's it. That's just gonna retrieve all of them for us. Now, as you can see, await is gonna say, oops, that ain't good. That's not good. So we just need to add async here for that to work. Cool, that's it. And then we can return and say res.status 200, which means everything's went okay and we have our post. And then we're just gonna return a JSON and we're gonna pass in the data like that. Cool. And if we have any error, we can return a res.status of 500.json error like that, and hit save. Cool. Now we are gonna have a little problem here, and it's gonna say property name is missing because here in TypeScript we're defining that we're gonna get back a name that's type of string, which we're not gonna get back. So we're just gonna get rid of it for now, and we're gonna clean this up and just keep it nice and simple. Okay, cool. Let's head over back to our home function here, our home page. And what we're gonna do is try to get the post here and then check if our response is not okay. So this is gonna say, hey, our response is not okay, so just throw a new error and say failed to fetch. Or we can just actually console log out the response here. Console log response, because we are sending the message here anyway. So let's just console out the message. And then finally, we're gonna say res.json and return all the posts for us. And then down here, we can say const data equals to await get posts, and that's essentially it. And then we need to add async here as well, and we can say console log out the data and hit save, and let's see if that works. npm run dev. Let's head over here, do a refresh. Oh, and we have our first problem. It says failed to parse URL from API/getPost. For some reason, when you do fetching in a server component, you're gonna need to add the full URL, which is funny because if this would be a use client, I'm gonna have other issues now, but it works to fetch with /API/post get posts when you're working with use client. So I'm not sure if that's a bug or if it was intentional that way. But what we need to do to fix that for now is to make that .local.env file that you saw here in the git ignore. So let's just make a new file here and call it .local.env, and we're gonna call this base URL, right? And our base URL is gonna be this. But when we're pushing it up to Vercel, then we can update it to Vercel's URL. Cool, so let's just add that. So we can modify this with backticks and just say $ curly brackets process.env.base URL. And now we can do a restart, and that should work just fine. Cool, let's take a look, do a refresh. And looks like we are still erroring out. It says fail to parse URL from undefined /get post. Oh, that's strange. I wonder why. Base URL, that looks fine to me. What are you on about? What am I doing? Base URL. Yeah, that looks fine. I wonder what I messed up. Oh, it's .env.local. That's the problem. God damn it. .env.local. There we go. Let's restart it again then. Cool. Refresh. And there we go. So look at that. We are getting back an array of objects with our new post. So that is fantastic. We cannot see it on the screen because we're not console logging it out anywhere. Sorry, we're not rendering it out anywhere. But that's all right. That's perfect. So let's get rid of this. Yeah, I wonder where I'm getting the console log from. I think it's this one here. If I'm removing it, yeah. Okay, cool. So that's the data that we're getting back, an array of objects. So what we can do now is also specify what kind of data we're getting back here with TypeScript. So I can do a colon here like that and curly brackets, and I'm gonna say, well, I'm gonna get back to a minimum the ID and the title here. So I can say ID is gonna be a number here. And I'm also gonna get back a title, which is gonna be a type string. And this is gonna be basically an array of objects. Okay, so the benefit of adding this now is take a look how cool this is. If I wanna render out all the data down here, I can say data.map. As you can see, it recognizes that. And look at that, the callback is gonna have an ID and a title of type string. So that's cool. I can do post here. And now when I render out something here, let's just do h1, post dot look. How cool is that? It just recognizes all the properties automatically. TypeScript's amazing. I don't know why I haven't jumped on the TypeScript wagon sooner, but I absolutely love it. And there we go. Hello, there's a new post. So the class name to this. We can do text large and a py of 6. Just to kind of push it down. Cool. So there it is. Amazing. Okay, so what else I wanted to show you is I just added a type of data props here because I know that my request of body here and then the data I'm getting back is going to be an object that's going to have a title of string on it. So I'm just specifying it up here and adding it down here. So now when I actually go and make a post, so I can do a try. So let's give it a shot. We're going to say const. Let's call this post as well. I'm gonna just change it to post and this to post props like that. I'm just gonna say const data down here is await prisma dot post again dot create. And look at that, how nice it is that it specifies us what we can do here with TypeScript. So I can just do select if I want to select maybe a post that has a specific ID, I can do that here. But in this case, I just want to add some data. So click data. And what can I add here? Again, we can use TypeScript by just control space. Look, title, content, ID, published. But title is the only one we need to add. Since we added a type to our post as well, we can just do for post dot, and look at that, it recognizes type. Cool. And finally down here, yeah, after we make the data try, here we're gonna catch errors, right? Catch error. And we can return a res.status of 500 that says, well, this post was too hard to make, so whatever, just let it go. And then here we can do res.status 200.json data. Now, I'm adding a message here for the error because I have access to this in the front end. So for example, let's say the user leaves the request body empty. I want to throw that error back. So the way I can do that is check for title, for example. I can say if there's no title length here, so if it's 0, which means they left it untouched, these bastards, I can return the response with a status of 500, and then I can just leave them a message in here saying, please do not leave this empty. And that's it. Cool. So now on our front end, take a look at this. So if I do end up making a post, oh my gosh, where is everything? Here, make a new post. Looks like we are not getting anything back for now. So that's weird, because that should error out now. We're specifically telling it to just return a response and that's it. Interesting. Console log response. And there's nothing in it. Let's see, any browser errors? Looks like we're getting back the actual post here. But again, this should error out. Okay, so it looks like it is going through our check and it's just going to make a post anyway. As you can see, if you refresh the page, you're going to have a bunch of empty ones here. So it's not catching it for some reason. So let's have a closer look at this and see where we messed up. So title here, that should be working. Oh, see, it's post.title. That's why it's not working. So we need to say post.title length should not be left empty. So now if we take a look here in the browser and click this button and do inspect, you're gonna see that we have an object with a message of please do not leave this empty. All right, so we can just access that here in our front end with console log res.message. All right, and now if we take a look now, so that's how you can catch all the errors nicely. So leave it empty, make a post, and look at that, this is left empty. So if you want to display that, whether it's in a React toast or whatever, or maybe you have another set state here, so and if the response is not okay, you can set the error to this res message in here. I also should specify here, because I can pretty much do anything for now. If I try to set the title to a number, okay, no, it is recognizing it automatically. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that works fine. So yeah, that's essentially it. You're catching errors, which is cool. You can make new posts. If you don't see any refresh on the page here, it's because that's how, that's kind of the default functionality of how Next works these days. What we can do is call, what I've saw recommended is, well, if I refresh the page, then it's going to show up the data. What you can do is here, you can add a export const revalidate. And if you highlight it, as you can see with Typescript, you get to see what it means, which basically means it's going to try to refresh the data for you after a certain amount of seconds. So if a new user comes on the page and it's a new request, and if this is set to 0, it's going to automatically just refresh the new data for you. All right, but to actually get it live, and when we click on make a new post to get it to show up, I believe you could use router.refresh, I believe it was. So you'd import use router here. And if I go down here and say router is use router, and then here in the form at the end, if everything is okay, I can just call router dot, I believe it was refresh. Oh, I think I know why it doesn't work. It's because it's from Next navigation. Oh my God. There we go. And now we can call router.refresh. There it is. Oh my God. So it just refreshes the current page and refetches the new data. So if I do something like, oh, and by the way, if I leave this if I leave the page here on default, it's just gonna cache it automatically. So if I add we now and make a new post, there it is. We are getting the changes. And then you can clear out the form here as well if you want to, but that's essentially it. So that's gonna be it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to push the code up to Vercel and you should be all good to go. All right, so that's gonna be it. Feel free to push up the code on GitHub and Vercel and you are good to go. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I really appreciate your support, and yeah, drop a subscribe and a like and a comment. I'd really appreciate that. All right, that's going to be it for me today. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know if you want to see more of it. As always, push up the code to GitHub and Vercel and drop a like and a subscribe. I'd really, really appreciate that. And check out the courses as well down below. Okay, guys, see you next time.